Hey everybody, welcome to the 1804 show, chapter 2. I'm your host, Nala Will, and this is 1804 history. But yeah, just wanted to thank everybody who's been subscribing to the YouTube channel. People who've been donating to the Cashapp, I really appreciate it. That's just how I get paid for, doing these segments. And I really appreciate you guys from the bottom of my heart. And remember, keep on subscribing to the YouTube channel, the 1804 chapter 2. Sorry. But yes, I wanted to talk about this guy, Larry Davis, who was pretty much a legend in the Bronx and survived a first assassination attempt in 1986 and pretty much was looked upon as a hero for taking on 6 New York police officers who practically came to his apartment to shoot him. And allegedly, he sold drugs and he sold, I can't really say what he sold, but basically he dealt drugs for him. And he knew a lot. He knew their operations. He knew their setup. But it's crazy that, black and brown people was considered the criminals when it was like a bigger picture. It was a whole lot of police corruption. It was a whole lot of people that was in on it, from the U.S. military, from the cops. People who were like giving our people 25 years or more for these drug offenses, and they was being unscathed. They was, profiting off our destruction. And we was the ones that was being vilified all over America and all over the news. But before he became a drug dealer, he was an aspiring rapper. He played multiple instruments. He really wanted to get a record deal and make it in the music business. And he had just, big hopes of making it off the hood and getting money, because he came from poverty. He came from nothing. And he was just a kid. He was only like 17, 18 years old when he first started. So on this night of November 1986, 6 police officers had a warrant for his arrest for murdering 4 drug dealers in the area. So they came in shooting from his sister's apartment, and he was just taking cover, and he was, trying to defend himself, because they was just telling him, hey, there's kids in here, stop shooting. So they really wanted to make an example out of him, because he knew too much. He knew that if anything got out, it was all over for him. So they went and got this warrant to serve to him. But really, they was going in to kill him, just like they did practically any black person back in them days. It was just so many people that the police had came into their crib or came to their residence and murdered them and assassinated them, and just would go by this story like, Well, they were shooting at us first. It was self-defense. But they had machine guns. They had rifles. They had pretty much like high firepower. And all he had was a pistol. And luckily, he escaped from the fire escape. And just imagine how good of a shooter you got to be to escape machine guns and high power rifles, just shooting at your walls, shooting at your apartment. And he pretty much escaped from the fire escape and pretty much was hiding. And he hid for 17 days. And nobody ever did anything like that before, when they was able to have a shootout with police and escape without physical harm or physical injury. So it was a citywide manhunt for this 20-year-old kid who did the unthinkable, who did the unbelievable situation. Because usually nobody ever did anything like that. You know, when it went to war for with the police. So he was found at a relative house across town, and he negotiated his surrender. He said, "I'm not going to give myself to the police unless the FBI is there, unless the camera crew is there, unless there's witnesses." Because he knew that once he had surrendered, chances are he could have been shot on the spot and dead on the spot. So he made sure that they met his demands. And then he quietly and safely turned himself in 17 days later after this manhunt. So he was tried with attempted murder, possession of a firearm, disturbing the peace, the whole nine. First, he was acquitted of the 4 drug dealers that they say he murdered. And secondly, he was acquitted for the attempted murder and all those charges against the police officers. So just imagine you go to war with against the police and you get acquitted for that. All charges are dropped against you. And it was just unheard of for a black man to be acquitted for shooting cops. And just because he got away, they still had this grudge against him. They still wanted him to pay for what he did. So they eventually locked him up for 25 years for killing this other drug dealer back in 1990. So he was sentenced to 25 years for that crime. And while in jail, he was being tortured. He was being beaten up by correction officers, and glass was always found in his food. He was afraid to eat. He pretty much didn't have no peace after that. Then he was in solitary confinement many times, just finding any way to F with him for shooting those cops. So he didn't really get found free after that, you know. So it was just always harassment. It was just always something. But yeah, While serving his sentence, he was killed by a Crip member by the name of Big Blue. A Puerto Rican who was serving time with him, and he hated him, and he stabbed him 11 times with a shank, jailhouse shank. So he passed on He passed February 20th, 2008, and he's survived by one daughter. But yeah, I would like to say this. um, he was just pretty much like a young man who wanted to go after his dreams and his aspirations and stuff, but it was just the fact that he lived in impoverished communities, and he had a baby on the way and stuff. So this is all he knew. He was a product of his environment, and the news and the media vilified him for protecting himself, and that's what they do, man. Could he have handled it a different way? Yes, but we don't know what was his circumstances and what really happened. We can only speculate, we can only assume, we can only imagine or wonder what was going through his head and what was going through just with his life. But he made sure that he wasn't gonna get killed that night, and made sure that his family was protected. And this is like a 20-year-old kid, at the time, and I can't imagine, putting myself in that position or being in that position. But I would say that for making sure that he was two steps ahead of the New York Police Department, I respect him for that, and I make sure that he will be treated with grace, because his killer right now is on Vlad TV making these interviews and stuff, and giving details, and pretty much rubbing in the faces of his family members of how he killed them, and what happened, and to me, I feel like that's really disrespectful. People would do anything for a story, people would do anything for clout, people would do anything for the bag, but not realizing that there's consequences to these type of things. And then you don't repent, you don't show no type of empathy when you say these type of things, which make you a monster, what makes you a coward, basically. But hey, it is what it is. But rest in peace to Larry Davis, aka Adam Abdul Hakim. And that's the end of this episode. And I just want everybody to hit the like button, subscribe to the YouTube channel, the 1804 Show Chapter 2. And thank y'all, and have a blessed night. Peace.